Hello, everyone. So, welcome to your third day on the onboarding. We're going to wait a few more minutes to see if more people joins, and we can start. Okay, so we're going to start. Welcome to your third day of the onboarding of the APP and the APIP. Let me know if you can hear me all right. Just tell me in the chat. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we will start now. So today we're going to talk about the policies for global talent. Wait. First, I'm going to be your facilitator today. I am Valentina Riccardi. I am a member of the board development team of ICB. I am the cluster coach for cluster 4, and from September I will be from cluster 5 as well. I am from Colombia. I joined AIESEC in July in 2018. And my life outside AIESEC, I am a consumer psychology student. I am right now not based on Colombia, but based on Italy. And that's me. Okay, so we can continue. Some alignments for this session. Okay. First, this is going to be a very heavy session. If I'm sure that you have been following the other ones, kind of like the other ones. So just grab a coffee, your favorite tea, and relax. I definitely recommend you to grab a notebook or something to write on because it's going to be a lot of information. And of course, as the other days, it's going to be a Q&A space at the end of the session. We are not going to have like a moment where you can speak and ask the questions, but I am going to read the questions that are on the form that you have to fill, and I am going to answer from there. So make sure that you write all of the questions you have there. And at the end, I will answer. And if I do not have the time to answer, you will still get an answer of your question on that form. So don't worry and just submit all of your questions. Again, if I speak too quickly or too slowly or whatever, just write to me in the chat and we will fix it. Okay, so this is the things we're going to see today. First, we're going to have a little introduction. Then we're going to talk about the product principles and minimums. Okay, well, first it's important for you to know this over here. If it is on this red, it is because it's completely new. If it is on this light green, it's because it is not completely new, but it has some changes. And if it is like in nothing, it's because it's kind of like the same, but that really doesn't happen. So then we're going to talk about the general policies for opportunity providers and EPs, the policies before approval, the remote feature protocol, which I am sure it's the most exciting thing for most of you right now. The policies from approval until realization, the policies from realization until completion, the finished realization earlier, the extension protocol, the governance system. We're going to talk about a little bit about that. Of course, all the things applicable to global talent, and the complaints and the case solving flow. So, and the questions and answers. So yeah, as I told you, it is going to be a bit heavy. It's a lot of content. So just grab a coffee, grab a tea, and relax and pay a lot of attention. Okay, so starting with the introduction, if you have been following the sessions these last few days, I am sure you already know this, but it's important for you to know that the AIESEC portfolio is the system of all the programs and services that AIESEC provides to the stakeholders, and of course how they are delivered by AIESEC. It has 3 stages, as I am sure you know by now. So we have the engagement with AIESEC, which is everything before our products, so how we engage people. Then is the ELD, which is the experiential leadership development, that is where our products are. And then we have the lifelong connection, that is everything that goes after the AIESEC experience. So right now, we are going to focus on the ELD because here is where global talent is, of course. Why are these sessions important and why you need to be aware of what is APIP and everything like that? These are policies that everyone has to be aware of because this is what we are actually delivering in. Of course, MCs and ECBs, which are the main people I think we have in this call, you are the ones responsible to educate your membership about all of these. So of course, it's very important that you are here. All MCs must comply with having an established ECB chair, ECB with at least a chair, of course, have an ethics responsible, have a harassment prevention committee, and of course, this is why you need to know all of the content that we are giving here. And you know that if any responsibility is violated, there will be sanctions, and they are already written in the document in the compliance matrix. As I am not really sure who is in this call, we are going to have like a bit of a distinction of what is ICB and what is ECB, so you can have it super clear. ICB is the International Control Board. It was before the Internal Control Board, so that is why the logo says it like that, but right now it's changed into the International Control Board. The ICB is in charge of supporting the governance of the AIESEC portfolio and to ensure customer centricity by guaranteeing operational and ethical compliance in every AIESEC activity. And then the ECB, which is the Entity Control Board, is the body responsible for the governance and compliance of the AIESEC portfolio, internal policies, and the arbitration of cases concerning AIESEC standards, ER principles, and AIESEC entities, which of course, this is why the ECBs really need to know this information and need to educate all of the membership so we can all be compliant of everything that is on the document in everything that we deliver as AIESEC. Okay, so as I told you, we're going to focus on the ELD because this is where the global talent is. And as I am sure you know better than me, the ELD is where we have our authorized products, our authorized programs of the organization, and is how we actually have our impact in the young people. All of these programs need to have like an experience in which people can experience the inner and outer journey, and of course can develop the leadership development qualities of AIESEC. We have three products, that are the Global Volunteer, the Global Teacher, and the Global Talent programs. And for all of the programs, we have the product principles, both on ICX and the OGX side. We have the product minimums, of course, per product. We have the criteria to be an exchange participant. We have the criteria to be an opportunity provider, and we have AIESEC general responsibilities. And this is all that we're going to talk about today, applicable to global talent. So we're going to start first with the minimums and principles of global talent. We're going to start here. We're going to divide. First, we're going to talk about the principles on the ICX side and then the principles on the OGX side. So principles on the ICX side, AIESEC cannot be the opportunity provider. This is very important. On EXPA, there cannot be an opportunity with AIESEC as opportunity provider. It has to be an actual organization, an external, and another stakeholder that it is not any AIESEC entity. The opportunity provider and AIESEC must sign a contract before opening the opportunity on EXPA. Sometimes this didn't happen, like they just opened the opportunity and afterwards they signed the contract. This cannot happen anymore. The contract must be signed before the opportunity is opened on EXPA. All contracts should be reviewed by a lawyer. This is so we can comply with the local norms of your countries, which is incredibly important. The opportunities must follow the latest guideline. This is an annex on the APIP. I am not going to get into it, but I really recommend you to review the document. The organization in EXPA must be the real one, must be the one that is actually the organization where the EP is doing the experience in real life. Sometimes it happened that the organization in EXPA was one, and when the EP was going to have the opportunity, they went to a different organization. This cannot happen anymore. The dates of realization on expa must be the real ones. This is another thing that always happened, that people just got approved from an opportunity on a red date, specific red date, and they did not comply with it. It was another red date that happened in the real life. This cannot happen anymore. It has to be the one on the platform. And the opportunity providers must be charged. They have to pay a fee so they can be opportunity providers. The APs cannot be charged by AIESEC. This means that there cannot be any TM fees and any fees outside of the OGX fee. All entities must have a standards tracker. AIESEC side, you need to track all of the standards that you're delivering to your EPs, and this needs to be very organized and like on an actual platform, not like, oh yeah, I know that I delivered it, but yeah, I'm not putting it anywhere. No, you have to have a tracker. All entities with the global host must have an MOU. The MOU is the Memorandum of Understanding. It's kind of like a contract, but it's not really a contract, but it has to be signed by the host and by the AIESEC entity. There has to be all of the agreements that the global host needs to have, which means that how much time is the host going to host the EP, what are the responsibilities of AIESEC, what are the responsibilities of the host, what are the responsibilities of the EP, what are the minimums provided to the EP. All of those things need to be on the Memorandum of Understanding, and everyone that is hosting must have signed it. The salary provided must be enough to cover living costs. This is very important because some EPs are paid less than what they're needed to survive in the country. There has to be a binding contract between the EP and the opportunity provider, a binding contract as in a legal contract, as in a working contract between the opportunity provider and the EP before the experience. And if the remote feature is applicable, it must comply with the protocol of remote feature that we're going to talk about that later, don't worry. And that's it for the ICX principles. Now we're going to the OGX principles. The EP and AIESEC must sign a contract before officializing the approve on EXPA. All contracts should be reviewed by a lawyer, same as on the ICX side. All EPs must have the EP manager on EXPA. All cost must be reading on the opportunity. If the cost is not on the opportunity, we cannot charge the EP, so everything has to be there. The hosting entity must add the health insurance on EXPA before the EP is on realization. That way we make sure that all of the EPs have the health insurance. As well as on the ICX side, the entities must have an standards tracker, and the entities must answer all of the applicants on EXPA. We cannot have any EPs flying around and not being contacted by AIESEC. Okay, now we're going to the product minimums, sorry. This is all that, this is the minimum things that you should have if you are going to open an opportunity in Global Talent. Everything must be in here. If it's less than what is in here, it is not a Global Talent opportunity and it cannot be open. So, okay, the first one, all of the opportunities must be related to business administration, finance, marketing, IT, engineering, or business development. The opportunity has to include the development of skills in a foreign environment. We have to make sure that we are actually delivering AIESEC. It's not just any internship, but it has to be with the elements that we as AIESEC want to deliver, like, for example, skills of a foreign environment. Again, the skills, the elements of the inner and the outer journey, which is the thing that we as AIESEC want to deliver. The EP must be supervised by the opportunity provider. They need to have someone in charge of them on the opportunity provider. The minimum is of 6 weeks and the maximum is of 78 weeks. It cannot be more and it cannot be less. If it is only between 6 or 8 weeks, it is not mandatory that the EP has a salary, but it has to have an accommodation, or maybe not an accommodation, but a salary that, of course, it's enough for them to cover everything that they have to cover on their living expenses. And if it is 9 weeks or longer, it's mandatory that they provide salary. It's not like, okay, my opportunity is 10 weeks, but I am delivering accommodation, so I do not have to pay. No. If it is more than 9 weeks, they have to have salary. It is not negotiable. This is the minimum of working hours, 35 hours a week, and a maximum of 45 hours a week. Okay, now we're going on the general policies. First, we're going to talk about the ones applicable to the EPs. This is pretty much the kind of like the same that was in the old XPPs, the criteria to be an exchange participant. Of course, to take proactive steps to resolve any issues based on AIESEC. Of course, yeah, like be very proactive, which is an important thing to, if you want to be an exchange participant, to ask about the things, to complain if it's needed to be complained, to negotiate with the opportunity provider, everything. And well, I was talking about complaints, to follow the complaint protocol that we are going to talk about, of course, as well, so don't worry. And if you're not sure about this section, this is all of the criteria to be an exchange participant, which means they need to have between an age range 18 to 30 years old. They need to be like on the country that they are approving, like all of the criteria to be an exchange participant, normal as if it has been before. No, there's nothing that, well, I don't think that there has changed, there was major changes here. So if you don't remember them, I encourage you to look at the documents. Then the opportunities applicable to opportunity providers, the policies. To comply with all of the criteria. This, as well as this, is all of the criteria to be an opportunity provider. Nothing changed much. To be legal, to be aligned with the values of AIESEC and all of those things. As well, to take proactive steps to resolve issues with the hosting entity, with the EP, negotiate with the EP, and all of those things, and to follow the complaint protocol on the case solving flow if there is any need. Now, the policies applicable to AIESEC, we're going to talk about the sending entity and the hosting entity as well. First, just to AIESEC in general, it doesn't matter if you're hosting or sending entity, you need to provide information and assist the EPs and opportunity providers during the complaints or violations if they are identified. You need to ensure that the exchange is complying with the national laws as well as the AIESEC policies. That is why every contract needs to be checked by a lawyer. And of course, it also has to be aligned with the APIP. And in case of natural disorder, crisis, or anything, check the status of all the stakeholders in the case of, I don't know, a pandemic. We need to make sure that everyone is safe and that everyone is taken account of. Okay, now applicable to the sending entity. You have to assign a person responsible for the EP experience as an EP manager. And you need to educate the EP on the processes, on the standards, on the leadership model, on everything that they are going to learn during the experience, of anything that they need to know about AIESEC. And now applicable to the hosting entity, to decide the selection process with the opportunity provider, to be constantly informing the applicant about the progress of their application, and to educate again the EP and the opportunity providers in everything that they need to know about AIESEC. So the standards, the leadership model, the inner and outer journey, everything. The policies before the approval. It is kind of like the same as the old XPPs, kind of, no, it is the same. So we're going to go very quickly here. The structure that goes in the document is the responsibilities of the EP, the responsibilities of the opportunity provider, which include the selection, the documents and legalities, and the cancellations, and the responsibilities of every AIESEC entity. I'm not going to go into this because it is the same. So if you want to remind them, I encourage you to look at the document again. So now it comes to the part that I know everyone's excited about, which is the feature. Okay, moving on. The remote feature. So for the remote feature protocol, we're going to have like, okay, as you know, this is completely new. And this is some things that you need to be aligned on before we talk about it. So the remote feature is going on right now as a pilot on some ICX, but it will be available for the rest of AIESEC soon, so don't worry. It's a feature, so it is not a full remote work, which means the opportunity cannot be the whole exchange remote. No, it's just a part of it. There will be an extra status on EXPA when the remote feature is going to be applied. So there will be another button that in the EP will have the status remote before being realized. And the protocol will cover these topics. So first, we're going to talk about the definition of the remote feature. We're going to talk about the requirements to apply to this feature, the criteria for the exchange participants and the opportunity providers, the policies from approval until the remote realization, and the policies from the remote realization until the actual realization, the canceling procedures, and the extension procedures. So we're starting with the definition. The remote features, as I was telling you before, is to start the experience remotely before the actual realization. So we're going to start the realization remotely, and then we're going to start the realization presently in the other country. This can be applied because of travel restriction, because of delays with visa process, and well, everything that is causing the EP not to start the realization when they were supposed to start. This cannot be applied to any global volunteer projects. It can only be applied to global talent and global teacher. And it can only be applied with opportunities with minimum of 3 months duration. The duration can cover both the remote and the physical working duration. But if it is like an opportunity of 2 months, you cannot have the remote feature protocol. It's just if it is a minimum of 3 months. And the maximum that the remote feature can last is just half of the duration. So for the 3 months duration, it can only be a month and a half remote and a month and a half to presently. Same as this one. If it is 6 months, it is only 3 months that the EP can work remotely, not more. And okay, the working hours of the remote part have to be agreed with the EP and the opportunity provider before the start of the internship. Why did this go? So now the requirements to apply to the remote feature. All EPs should receive a salary for the remote part of the internship. Of course, as I was telling you before, if the opportunity is more than 9 weeks, the EP needs to have a salary. And if you are going to have a remote feature, it has to be more than 9 weeks because the minimum is 3 months. So yes, the EP has to have a salary on the remote part of their work. The payment can be in 2 ways. If it is longer than the 12 weeks, there has to be a way for the EP to receive the money before going into the present part of the experience. So it has to be an online way for the EP to receive the money while he is working. And if it is less than 12 weeks, if it is less than 12 weeks, it can be as well like having an online solution, but it can be as well be agreed that they will pay all of the amount of the remote work when he or she arrives to the country. Of course, if it is any of the solutions, the EP has to be aware of it, and they need to sign it, and they need to respect it, and everything has to be coordinated before the approval. This is a recommendation for the opportunity provider to provide a non-disclosure agreement for the EPIP to sign before. I mean, this is a recommendation, and this is to protect the opportunity provider because they will have someone like with access to all of their internal data and all of the data of the organization and everything to someone that it is not physically there. So this is like recommended, it's not mandatory, but it will be good to protect the opportunity provider. And of course, the EP is working on the other country, even if it's remotely. So they're liable to any legal responsibility, tax, or whatever that it is while they are on the remote and while they're on the physical part on the internship. Oh, there's another one. And well, of course, if all of this is not fulfilled, there cannot be an approval for a remote feature opportunity. Okay, now the responsibilities, oh, sorry, no, the criteria for the opportunity providers, the exchange participants, I'm sorry. All exchange participants shall fulfill the criteria under the clause of the document. This clause is the criteria to be an exchange participant. We already talked about it, so every normal thing about being an exchange participant. And of course, working on a remotely way is hard if they are not like willing to demonstrate as well all of the professionalism and all of the teamwork and all the abilities that are supposed to be there while they're in a physical environment. So they need to demonstrate that they are able to have to work in a team, to be professional, and to be completely present during the remote part of the experience. And the criteria for opportunity providers, this is again the criteria to be an opportunity provider normal, as we already talked before. They need to be able to provide an adequate working environment without discrimination, without everything, just as if they were on the physical place. They need to provide clear guidance on the remote routine to the EP, and of course support him for the engagement to the company, not only to the daily tasks and to the things that he or she has to do, but also like to the environment to the working environment, to the people, an actual induction, an actual introduction to the working place. And of course, it is recommended that the opportunity provider has already experience with remote or virtual work because these will ensure that they are able to provide an adequate remote or physical environment. But I mean, it's not mandatory, but it is highly recommended. Okay, now those were the things that the opportunity provider needs to have. So now the things that if they don't have, they cannot apply. Here they go. Someone was asking for the link of the questions. Here it is. You can just type it down. Okay. A company does not have the right to apply if they cannot meet the conditions in the APIP or it annexes. If it has already breached the AEPP, if it does not align with the AIESEC Code of Ethics and Global ER principles, if it does not meet the requirements to legally be in the hosting entity, and if they do not have the capability to provide the legal status or a visa invitation for the physical part of the exchange. Okay, Now the policies from approval until the remote realization. I think I already said this before. First, they will have the status of remote re, then they will have the status of actual re. Use another button on Expo. Oh. Okay, this is what needs to happen. This is what AIESEC needs to do from the approval until the remote realization. ICX still needs to provide an IPS, of course virtual, but this needs to happen. The EP will already be immersed in a work environment of a culture that they know nothing about. So this is very important for them to have a good experience and for them to be educated and for them to have a good like a good start of experience. They need to provide written information to the EP about the duration of the remote period. This this is something that has to be agreed upon before and needs to be written, needs to be proved. And OGX needs to have a preparation space so they can have they can set the expectations on the remote work and of course of the physical work. But like this is because it's very new, because it's very like abstract, like actually helping them to know how to create a routine, to know how to to know how to create a routine and to know how to do the remote work. Okay, we already said that. Okay, these are the things applicable to AIESEC from the remote realization to the actual realization. Okay, they have to fulfill the responsibilities that are from approval to realization. This is the clause 9.5 of the document. They need to have a virtual first day of work. So same standards. It's not, of course, they cannot be with them physically, but they have to be there present when they are doing the first day of work. They need to have monthly review meetings with the EP and the opportunity provider. This is to check the actual realization date and to see how the opportunity, like the things are going with the remote feature. And to have the OGX side must have bi-weekly meetings with the EP to review how the remote work experience is going and to support the EP. Now applicable to the opportunity providers, they have to fulfill the responsibilities that are mentioned under the section. That is all of the responsibilities between the approval to the realization, normal. They have to provide a self and welcoming introduction to the EP, like as I said before, just introducing them to the workplace and to the work environment, and to fulfill the job descriptions that were agreed with the EP before the approval. And applicable to the EP, fulfill their responsibilities. These are as well the responsibilities from approval to realization. Fulfill any legal or tax responsibilities. As I said before, the EP is working in another country, even if it's remotely, and that is tied to legal responsibilities. Fulfill the job descriptions and the working hours that were agreed upon. Okay, now for the cancellation during these remote durations. When we are canceling the remote status is like breaking to the approved status in the platform, and they can be canceled by an MC of an AIESEC hosting entity with the confirmation of the sending entity as well. The reasons of the cancellation can be the same as they were before on the XPP, so nothing new there. Okay. Now the extension of this remote duration. You can extend the remote duration, but this cannot exceed half of the total duration of the internship, as we said before, because that is the maximum that it can be. There are some exceptions, there are this one. If they, okay, the EP cannot travel for the country because of border restrictions, or because of something extraordinary that happened and that has to be notified on the official government channels. APIP cannot travel because of, okay, the same, but of the hosting entity and of the sending entity. And if there's a delay on the work permit or the visa because of something that is completely unexpected. If these three happen, if any of these three happen, the remote part can be longer than half of the internship, but it's only under a really special circumstance. It's only under these three clauses. And they need to have like, these are all of the requirements to be a part of the remote feature protocol. So if they want to extend it, it has to be under one of these clauses, and it has to be with confirmation with the EP and the opportunity provider. And if it is extended, there has to be an official communication, a written communication to both the AIESEC sending entity and hosting entity, the EP and the opportunity provider. And there has to be a follow-up on the possible real realization date. Okay, now going out of the remote feature and going back into the real realization feature, we're going to talk about the policies from approval to realization. It's pretty much the same, just like one responsibility, like one slight change. The structure is the same. First is the responsibility of the opportunity and of the opportunity provider and the EP, the responsibilities of the AIESEC entities, the canceling of approvals. So now we're going to talk about the change. The change is to inform both AIESEC sending entity and hosting entity if the opportunity provider or EP becomes unavailable, but the time frame is the one that changed. It is a maximum of 56 days before the realization date. If it is canceled outside of this time frame, the opportunity provider and the EP will not receive any compensation and will be responsible for complying with the compensation policies on the document, that it is an annex. If they do it outside of this time frame. Now the policies from realized to completed. There are also slight changes. The structure is the same, so the responsibilities, then the responsibilities of AIESEC, the canceling approvals. So now, what is the slight change? To be constantly communicating with the EP, including location and safety, at least. We need to have, if it's a short experience, it has to be at arrival, medium, and the middle of the experience, and in the final week. If it's a mid-length experience, at the arrival and then at least once a month, and the same if it's a long experience, at the arrival and at least once a month. Okay, now we're going to the finished realization earlier. This is another really new feature that didn't exist before, and it is defined as finishing the realization before it was supposed to be finished, but being considered a finished status and not a broken realization status as it used to happen. Yeah, there's not a new status, it's just going to be the regular finished status, but for internal reasons, we can know if they were finished earlier. These are the conditions under they can request and finish realization earlier. The first one is, of course, not having violated any of the AEPP clauses, have a written agreement before the EP and the opportunity provider, having complied with the minimum of the exchange program, which means 6 weeks for global talent. This is how you can do it. We already know this. Okay, the circumstances that an EP can request is because they have an emergency of the family, if they become ill, or if there is an emergency, like for example, a pandemic that puts in danger the EP and they need to go before. And the opportunity provider can request it if they are bankrupt or if they are bought by someone that cannot continue the exchange. If there is like an event of major, of force major, like a pandemic, that puts into danger the health or the security of the EP. For breaking the for like requesting the finish realization earlier, the ECB chair needs to submit a formal request. On how to do it on your specific entities, you have to talk to your ECB chair. Now on to the extension protocol. We're almost done, I promise. This is not completely new, but there are some changes. For global talent, the opportunity provider will need to pay extra fees of the time that they will exchange the opportunity, but the EP does not need to pay any extra fees if they are going to be extended on the same opportunity on EXPA that they're already approved for. This is again something that we already talked about. If the opportunity exceeds the 8 weeks, they need to have a salary for the EP on the rest of the experience, because because if it is longer than that, they need to have a salary. They do not need to pay salary for the first 8 weeks, like that already happened, but for the extension, they need to have a salary. Here, as we said on the product minimums, the experience cannot last more than 78 weeks, so they cannot be extended for more than that. And to request it, the ECB chair needs to do it to the ICB chair. And if you want to know how to do it on your entity, you have to talk to your ECB chair. Okay. This is also important. If the EP status is still realized, you can ask for extension protocol. If it is already finished on EXPA, they may not be able to have an extension protocol. It can be denied because it's already finished. Okay, right now not, but afterwards it will be. It can be denied. Okay. Now we're going to talk about governance system. This is all of the sanctions that can occur. This is all the compliance matrix that is on the document, and this is all, again, super new. So to start talking about this, what is the governance system? It is the outline of the processes and practice, so we as AIESEC can ensure compliance with the documents that we are talking about, and we can know how to deal with the cases that come if we violate any of the things that happen on the document. ICB, the International Control Board, is the body responsible for the governance of the portfolio, of the AIESEC portfolio. Okay, we have two controlling bodies, which is the ICB with us in an international level, and is the ECB in a national level. The compliance system, we have the compliance matrix. It's one of the annexes of the APIP. I will show it to you. I think we have time, I'm not sure. So you can see the violations of the global talent on the global talent matrix. And how are we going to ensure compliance of this matrix? There are several ways. First is the submission of a whistleblowing. The whistleblowing, it's a way, if you know that something is not being done correctly, you can submit a whistleblowing. It can be anonymous, it can be not anonymous. It is just like a way for you to submit a wrongdoing. The complaints received on the quality cases, on the okay, the quality cases that come with the EPs, the local audits that are now mandatory and performed by the ECB, the national audits that are performed by ICB, the surveys that happen all during the year. And we have to report the compliance. ICB reports the compliance through quarter reports, and ECB also has to report the compliance of the local committees through quarter reports. Okay, before I go to the next slide, I want you all to tell me how many violations do you think that there are on the global talent matrix? Okay, the matrix has a lot of violations that can happen on the AIESEC side and on the OGX side. How many? Okay, but you're just telling me numbers. Are those for AIESEC or OGX? Okay, we have for AIESEC 31, 10 of AIESEC, OGX 21, 26, 10,000. Okay, yeah, countless. Okay, let's see who's right. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Oh, wait. Okay, so I messed up 1 second. Before we know the violations, I never explained to you what the compliance metric was. This is the system that contains all of the possible violations on AIESEC, and it has the objective to ensure that we are proactive and that we have the best intentions to protect our customers, and that we are aligned with the APIP, and that we reduce the risk associated with the APIP. We have violations, we have risks, and we have sanctions. And if you see the document, it is divided in that. The violation, which type of risks it include, and the risks that, and the risk number that it may include, if it is like the impact, that was what I was searching for, sorry, and the sanctions if there are any violations. So now we're going to know the violations. I'm going to open the chat to see if you said anything else. Okay. For ICX is 52 violations. And from the OGX side, there are 30 violations. I think some of you got it right. Okay, there was someone that says 45 on the ICX side. 55, it was kind of close. Okay, but yeah, there are a lot of violations. I want to show you real quick. Here you have, this is, I don't know if you can see it, just tell me if you can see, if you're seeing the compliance matrix right now. Okay, amazing. This is a compliance matrix for the global talent and the global teacher. These are the ICX violations, as I said, 52. Here you can see them all. And you can see the type of risk that it has and the severity level. This is the impact that I was talking about. So, for example, at AIESEC is an opportunity provider on Expo. This is a violation. These are the risks that it has. So this one is a finance risk. This one is a reputation risk. This one is a performance risk. And this is the severity level. And this with all of violations. How do you know if you include, if you are doing any of these violations? Well, they are on the matrix, and it's just not do anything outside of the minimums and outside of the policies and outside of everything that I have talked to you about before. So this is how you can see. These are the ICX side, and here they are the OJ. Oh no, I passed them. Where are they? Okay, here you will find everything. This is the ICX side, and somewhere else is the OGX side, but there is in there, so don't worry. This is the compliance matrix. This is the Annex 4, and if you open the APIP, you can find it right here on the annexes. So it's really easy to find. Okay, now continuing. A lot of violations. Now we're going to talk about complaints. This is finally our last topic before we go to the questions. So we're almost finished. So the definition of the complaints. To raise an issue regarding an AESEC exchange problem, we must have these resolutions. It can be requested by an exchange participant or an opportunity provider and will be evaluated based on the AAPP, which they all have access to. This is the procedure steps. So this is not new. The complaint party will be known as the one who submitted the complaint, and the respondent will be used to the one that is responding to that complaint. So just so we have the terms clear. This is new. The complaint has to be raised within a maximum of 12 months from the original violation date. If it is raised after those, AIESEC can deny to proceed with the process because it's outside of the time frame. The complaining party, so the one that raises the complaint, always has to keep the proofs and the records and the receipts of all the expenses. This is very important because, as it says next, the reimbursement would only be done to the receipts that the EPIP provides or the opportunity provider provides. If there is not a receipt, we will not reimburse. Only the things that are written. So this is why it's very important for them to keep every proof and every record of everything that they spend. This is the case solving flow. So LC to LC level has to be done 3 days since the EP raised the issue. Then the ECB level, this is new because it's expanded. Now it's 7 days since the issue is raised by the LC. This is the national level. And in the ICB level, it's 10 days since the issue is raised by the ECB, and this is with an official complaint application. I am not going to go into this, and if you have doubts, your ECB team knows very well how this works, so you should ask them about it. We're finally done. So we're going to check some of the questions that you have done. So if you have not submitted your questions and if you have a lot of them, please submit them now because I'm going to answer from there. So here are the questions.
Vale, can I host this space because I saw that there are a lot of specific questions. I was organizing them in the spreadsheet, so I would like to answer them. Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Amazing. So hello guys, I am Karina, I am the current ICB chair. Thank you so much, Vale, for this space. You are amazing. I think that you all have at least more than 50% of the information that you need to run GTA properly. I'm gonna go for the questions. Let me share my screen. Vale, please. I think you can see it. Yes, I will start one by one, the things that we received in here. If you still have questions, you can still submit them, and I'm gonna go exactly one by one. The questions that are in red, they are the ones related to GTA. This spreadsheet will be available for all of you later on, so you can get the output of all the answers that all the questions that we are answering in here, not only related to the product itself, but for all the content that we are talking during the onboarding. Cool. Starting with the first one. Can you explain more about the guideline in remote work for those products? I believe that this question was answering while delivering the session because this form was available before starting the cycle. So that's why I put in here that explain it in the calls. But if you still have any doubts, you can talk to any person from IT. We have a question related to how to proceed with the fees in GTA. First question, can the hosting entity charge an accommodation fee for IGTEPs? So as Vale said, they can, but if it's a short-term duration. What do I mean by that? If you are delivering an exchange from 6 weeks until 8 weeks, you can charge because you have to choose by charging a fee or giving the accommodation. You can choose between both situations, but if it's more than 8 weeks, you cannot. You cannot charge. It depends on the duration of the product. Can the host entity charge a fee for opportunities that used to be GE and turned into GT after the products change? I love this question because that's actually some strategy that most of the entities are doing right now. They have, as you all know, we are not working with GE anymore, and all GE's opportunities, they are being kind of treated as GTs. So if you're changing it from your GE opportunities for your GT opportunities, you need to comply with the new product minimums, because we don't work with GE anymore. So if your opportunities that used to be GE turned into GT, you need to comply with the policies for GT. And as you know, as I know too, most of the opportunities for GE, they were for short term. So if your GE opportunity before offered accommodation, and if it's a short-term GT right now, it is still okay, because you need to offer or accommodation or the salary. So I guess that's it. What happens if the OP cancels their realization 10 days prior to its beginning? Must the OP reimburse the EP's expenses, I guess? In this case, well, what happens? We have a clause right now in the document that says, if the EP or the opportunity provider says that they cannot host or they cannot go for an exchange with reasons that are not stated in the documents right now, they will be liable to pay. They will be liable to reimburse the EPs. So probably this opportunity provider would have to go for a case in the compensation policies, and you can see exactly what would be the responsibility for the EP to reimburse. But in the end, it's AIESEC that is providing the exchange. So the opportunity provider, if they don't pay, this will unfortunately become the responsibility from the host entity, because the host entity is responsible to have the contract with the opportunity provider. What my advice in here is that you align with the opportunity provider, that if they want to cancel the exchange by any method that is not written in the document, they need to say it in a specific timeline. And for GT, the timeline is 56 days before the realization starts. What is this contract below the clause? Is a contract, this binding, I don't know how to say that. Contract is a contract that the EP needs to sign with the opportunity provider when they start the realization. What does it mean? Because right now, if we are providing an exchange with AIESEC, what happens? The EP has a contract with AIESEC. AIESEC has a contract with the opportunity provider, but the EP doesn't have any type of a contract or legal things with the opportunity provider directly. They have it with AIESEC only. And to make sure that we will have everything settled, we are asking entities to have this contract between EPs to opportunity provider. And there is in this clause, you can see that is written that the information written on this contract between EPs and OPs cannot be different than what is written in the contract that the EP signed, and also in the what we have written in the youth opportunity. Why this is happening? There are some companies that they demand it, and most of them are global partners or even big companies. I know that there are some people here that works with Tata, for an example, and I know that Tata has something kind of similar to this. And that's one of the reasons that we decided to make it formal, because for the company, it's important to have that, and also to help us in terms as an organization, now that we have a that helps EPs and EPs to, I don't know, to make sure that they are actually involved somehow, not only with AIESEC. This question is starting when does this contract that I'm talking about between EP and OP have to exist? Starting when? Day of work. So it's advised that you have it as soon as possible, but ideally the EP cannot start working in the company without this contract. So the maximum, let's say a deadline for this would be the first day of work. You all know that you need to deliver the first day of work. So it's an idea for you to add in the agenda of that to sign this contract between EP and OP. It could be in a space of alignment with the opportunity provider or any other thing. Can EP get approved to a normal project for 3 months and then switch to remote a few weeks before realization? Or do they have to be approved to a remote internship from the beginning? This is tricky. I would say no, but it's tricky. Why? Because depending on your entity, depending on your national laws, probably you will have to have different clauses in a contract that states that is talking about the remote feature. And when you say switch to remote, if it's with the same opportunity provider, you can do some kind of amendment in the contract, you can do some kind of things, but it will be tricky for you. So my recommendation is, if the EP is approved for a 3 months project and they want to switch to a remote one, you will probably have to create another opportunity to break the approval and then approval this EP again in a new opportunity, even if it's the same opportunity provider. Because in the end, if your EP is approved in an opportunity that is not with the remote part, probably the way that it's written in the youth opportunity portal, it's going to be different because there are minimums that we need to comply with while opening an opportunity with the remote feature. So the easiest way for you to do that would be to break the approval and approval it again. That's it. In EXPA, will it remain approval despite starting with the remote protocol experience? Yes. Why are we doing that? Because right now what we have on XPP is that the first day of work, the EP is turned into when they are having their first day of work in a foreigner environment. So we are understanding that the EP are actually being realized in a country when they are actually physically in that country. But why are we doing as platforms and so on to make sure that we know that that EP is having a remote feature and that it's realized in the remote phase, is that despite of having approval, we will have a remote button. So while approving your EP and while starting the remote feature part, you'll go to the EXPA button and then you're gonna click remote. But the status of the EP will still be approval. But it will be like an extra button for you to click there saying, yes, this EP started the remote phase. And then when you go for the real realization after the remote phase, this EP will become live. The opportunity provider does not pay corresponding salary to the EP for 2 consecutive months after the remote phase. Between the remote phase and the physical phase, that is more than 2 months of difference. Between, if the remote phase and the physical phase, that is more than 2 months of difference, but the payment of the remote part was agreed the first month of the physical part. Is this violated? Should they provide a solution to send the money? I didn't get this part. If between the remote phase, physical phase, you mean like a gap? I started working home and then I'm gonna wait like for 3 months to start my physical. I didn't get this part. If you're in the call, please clarify your question.
I think that it is because if it is like more, if the remote part it's 12 months, if it is less than 12 months, you can pay afterwards. But if it's more than 12 months, the remote part, it cannot be paid afterwards. It has to be paid like as an online method. I think that is what the document says. I think that's what the question was saying. I'm not sure.
Okay, ideally, let's say in an ideal world, this thing should be one like right after another. So you're gonna have your remote phase and then you will have your realization because you're still in an realization part. But if you have to wait, like you stop working and then you're gonna go for work later on in a physical part, honestly, we don't have anything specifically in the documents about that. And since we are still in a pilot, this is a conversation that I think we need to have and understand how to proceed, if this is going to be a violation or no. So to be fair with you, I think that an ideal state would be not having like a phase where the person is not going to be working and just start the remote and then continue with the physical. But if we need to have this gap, I will get the answer for you later on because I have your email. I know that used to be the question. How does it apply? Because remote protocol, if in APIP, it says that in case of restrictions to travel or delays in the visa process, it can apply this protocol. That is only in those cases can it apply. If so, would these cases not appear until after the approval? Okay, so this part of delays in visa process, restrictions to travel, is related to the extensions of a remote feature and also related to the exceptions of having the remote feature for more than 50% of the entire realization. So if you have an internship that is for 12 months and for 50% of the time, you're gonna have the remote feature, but even going for the 50% of the time, 6 months, you will still have problems with visa, or you cannot leave your country, or you cannot enter in the country that you're supposed to, you can have more than 50%. This part of delays and being unable to leave your country or to enter in the country are the exceptions for the clauses that we have by extending or by having more than 50% of the realization. If between the remote phase and the physical phase, that is more than 2 months of difference, but the payment of, I think that, no, if the remote phase and the physical phase, that is more than 2 months of difference, the payment of the remote part was agreed the first month of the part, is it viable? I think that this is the same question I already answered before. What if there is a realization break during the remote feature? Then you go apply the case of inflow if needed, or any other part of a compensation if needed. Let's pretend that I'm having a remote experience right now and I want to break the realization because of things that are written in the document, and I have the right to break my realization. Well, if I need to be reimbursed, I will be reimbursed. But the thing is, the burden, let's say, that will be less, because usually when you have to compensate someone because of a break realization, you need to compensate with all of the costs of the remote fee, the exchange. But if you're doing a remote phase, you didn't have many costs. Probably you just paid your OGX fee. So if you need to get any compensation, that would be the thing that you will have to receive back. But the protocol for breaking and the case of inflow, we will still apply normally. This is still an exchange in AIESEC. And on EXPA, because you're still in a remote part and we don't have realization in there, probably, I'm not sure about that because we are still testing, it will be an approval break, but it's still with the button written marked in there that the person started the remote feature. If we meet the requirements for a remote feature, and more if we were initial pilots, since when we can start selling to new OPs? Okay, if you are part of the pilot, I think that the best person to answer you this question would be Esgi, but as far as I know, please confirm with her, you can already sell it to your OPs because you're part of the pilot. If you're not part of the pilot, this will be available for all AIESECers soon. If I am not wrong, I can be wrong because the best person to tell you this is Asgi, is that this is going to be available for all AIESECers is still in August. So by August, not only the people that are working with the pilot, everyone can work with this. But again, confirm this with Asgi. Cool. NDA document, non-disclosure agreement, is provided by ICB, or we should do on with, like, by yourself with the lawyer support. My recommendation is that you ask for the company. Why? Because non-disclosure agreement is a data protection document. And who is going to say that the policies are going to comply with the GDPR and the things on the data from the company and so on? It's actually the company. The type of the NDA that an IT company will provide is different than probably the type of NDA that a teaching company will provide, for an example. So I would recommend you to ask the opportunity provider to provide you the NDA. ICB is not going to then scale a template for that, but you can also have it on yours with the lawyer. But ideally, the best option would be asking the opportunity provider to give you some, because they will know exactly what they need to protect in terms of data from their side. Ooh, cool. I have a lot of questions. Can all entities request remote protocol, or will a pilot be done in other entities first? That is the pilot happening right now with a few entities. And when the pilot ends, it will be available for all IESECers. For what I know right now, it's only the entities that are working with the pilot can work with this right now. Once it's open for everyone, it will be available for everyone. To review the contracts, is it necessary to have a separate lawyer for each LC, or it should be done with a lawyer who was contacted by MC? Okay, I think that this depends on how your entity is working. For an example, I know that AIESEC in Brazil, because I am from Brazil, we need to have a lawyer per LC, but some LCs in Brazil, they have the same lawyer as the MC. Why? Because in Brazil, the way that the entities are working right now, they are kind of independent. They don't depend on the MC. But I know other entities that the LCs, they are under the MC because they depend legally on the MC. So I cannot answer you that in a global state because it depends on how your entity is working. So I would recommend you to go for your MCP or for your MCVP finance to check if each LC need to have a lawyer or if it's okay to have a lawyer by the MC. What I can tell you right now is that every MC needs to have established a relationship with a lawyer. This establishment doesn't need to be exactly a contract or something. It's just to have a relationship, and it could be like a contract per hours worked or something. It doesn't need to be something paid monthly. It depends on the periodicity that you will need a lawyer in your entity. Regarding the remote protocol, will it be visible to EPs on youth opportunities? Yes, they will have like a button that they can see all the opportunities that have the remote part on available for them. This is still under development with the AIESEC international developers. Or is it the home entity responsible for offering the possibility to the EP? You can also offer that, but they will have it available on the youth opportunity. How can we make sure as host entity and send entity that the EP, please don't raise your hand, type on the question or type on the chat. How can we make sure that the host entity and send entity that the EP is fulfilling their JD remotely? Is there any condition that state that the EP has to have a computer or good internet for the whole duration of the remote realization? That would be good. One of the parts that we have on the remote feature is that the EP and also the opportunity provider, they need to be aware of the challenges probably that the remote phase could bring to them. But it's not mandatory to have all of these things. I think that it will depend on the alignments that you will have with the opportunity provider. I believe that good internet and computer can be some things extremely important for the remote phase, but it's not written in our documents that it's extremely needed to have a computer or a good internet. This can be part of the alignments that you're gonna have with the opportunity provider. But let's be honest between ourselves. If you're working remotely, probably you will need a good computer, not a good computer, but a computer that allows you to deliver your work and also a good internet. And all of these things, if you don't have to, you need to align this with the opportunity provided, and then it will be the part of the opportunity provider and also AIESEC to proceed with the approval or not. Because in the end, this is a selection process, and the opportunity provider will have to say yes or no for the candidates. You are currently going over the semi-remote protocol, but what about completely remote? Would anything change for entities that are piloting the completely remote project? Okay, completely remote is still in the beginning. I think that also the best person to answer you this question would be Azzy, but so far what we have as major thing would be the remote feature. Completely remote, it's another project that AIESEC International is still in the phase of research. And if the pilot is working and if you're gonna be part of the pilot, this is not even being legislated in our documents. This is just a research that they are studying the possibility to have a completely remote. That's it. So don't worry about this right now. This is pilot. AIESEC International is still on phase of research about that. Focus on the feature that is all the policies that Vale explained to you. If the EP pay for the fee short term, then EP wants to extend the duration, maybe 6 to 12 weeks more. What do we charge? Then do we charge fee for the EP? No. I love this question because I already received it before. You cannot charge EP's fees for the GT. So if you, for an example, I am having a mid-term duration, so 6 months, and I want to extend it for 12 months. But during my approval phase, I assigned the contract saying that would be for a mid-term. So what I bought with AIESEC was a mid-term duration, and I'm extending that because I like the work, because the opportunity provider wants to extend, or by any other reason. So I won't need to pay AIESEC again, because this is not a new exchange, this is an extension. And if your entity has a different pricing depending on the duration of the fee, this is related to the moment that your EP is signing the contract. It doesn't matter if your pricing is more or low because it's longer or shorter. If it's an extension, you cannot charge your EP OGX fees again, because they are just extending something that they already bought. And what matters is actually when they are buying the product, when they are buying the experience with AIESEC. Wow. It's a lot of questions, I'm shocked. Well, continuing. This one. If the extension exceeds 8 weeks and the EP was provided the accommodation before, he will get salary. But will the EP will still be living in their accommodation provided so far, or will they have to look for another accommodation and start paying for the accommodation? This would be your decision, like as AIESEC as opportunity provider. In the end, what matters is that the EP receives salary, and the salary is enough to cover the accommodation. If you're gonna get like accommodation, still the same, and a salary that is enough for living costs, is less accommodation because you're already providing accommodation, it's fine. If you're like saying, let's get you out of this accommodation because you're going to receive this salary, what you'll have to do is to support your EP to find another accommodation that the salary that he or she is receiving will be enough to cover the new accommodation. That will happen, because in the end, what matters is that the EP have accommodation, and also that the EP have or a salary enough to cover it. Thank you so much for this space. Welcome. My question is, since when do the documents of the audits cease to be valid when approved is requested to be broken by COVID-19? I didn't get the question. Did you understand, Vale?
No, I don't think so. I'm sorry.
So if you are in the call, please type in the chat what you mean by this. Since when did the documents of the audit cease to be valid when approval is requested to be broken by... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for this. Moving. In 3 months, can the opportunity taker pay for 8 weeks accommodation and the other 8 weeks salary in a project over 3 months? Okay. What do the policy say? The policy says that if you're opening an opportunity that is for 6 weeks to 8 weeks, you can choose between accommodation or salary. 6 weeks to 8 weeks is less than 3 months. For 3 months, you have around 12 weeks. If you're talking about 12 weeks, this means that you need to pay a salary that the EP will be able to cover the living costs, and the living costs we are considering accommodation inside of the living costs. So to pay 8 weeks accommodation and the other 8 weeks salary, no, this is not possible, because 3 months, it's it's like 12 weeks. And 12 weeks is more than 8 weeks, because 8 weeks is the minimum for you to choose between salary and accommodation. So you cannot do that. Oh, okay. Other questions? Can you please explain remote phase again in brief? Yes, remote phase is that you bought an exchange with AIESEC, you're going for a GTA or a GTE, and you have the opportunity to work from home with your computer remotely. That's what it says. But there are a lot of policies inside of it that Vali explained it. And the most important one for you is that if you're having an exchange for 12 months, for an example, the remote phase cannot exceed 50% of the realization. So if you have something that is for 12 months, the remote phase can only be for 6 months. If you have something that is for 3 months, the remote phase cannot go more than 1.5 months. That's it. The possibility for you to work remotely with AIESEC, but it's not fully remote. It's just a part of your exchange. In case an EP is approved for an old GE that is turned into short-term GT, but that have duration above 8 weeks, how shall we deal regarding accommodation, fee, and salary? Well, you need to follow the principles for GT, because even though it was a GE and now it is a GT, you need to understand that now it is a GT. So you need to follow the policies that we have for GT. And if the policies that we have for GT for less than 8 weeks says that you need to provide accommodation or salary, what you have to do is provide accommodation or salary. That's it. If an entity does not wish to work with the remote feature, yeah, of course, it's not mandatory for you to open opportunities with the remote feature. If you don't want to do that, it's up to you. It's just a possibility that we have in AIESEC right now. If we meet the requirements for remote feature, and more if we were initial pilots, since when can we start selling the new? I already answered that before. Will the IPS be a virtual one? And when does your physical experience begin another one? Yes, you will have to deliver two different IPS because it's two different parts of the exchange. One virtual, another one physical. What about the EP already approved in GE since February? What is the SOP going to look like now? Everything related to SOP, I think the best person to answer you for this is AIESEC International, because we are not working as ICB with SOPs right now. But any changes related to the change management from GE to DT, you can go to Asgi. I know that she's gonna be excited to answer you about this. Can you tell me the full form for AEPP? I don't understand what you mean by full form. So if you're in the call, you type the chat. What do you mean by full form of AEPP? Regarding the lawyer, is there any process that they have to go through, like recognize it in a GA or something? Does AI or ICB needs any proof that there is a lawyer for a certain entity? This is an interesting question. We're gonna talk that deeper on tomorrow's call, on the call of safety guideline, because safety guideline will include everything related to contracts and lawyers and safety manners that AIESEC needs to proceed with. But in the end, we are still defining how we are going to make sure that the entities are not violating the thing of not having a lawyer. Because if you go for the compliance metrics right now, the violations related to the global safety guidelines, that is saying that the entities need to have a relationship established with a lawyer. So we don't know exactly how are we going to audit that, if it's going to be a letter, a document signed by the lawyer saying that, yes, I have a relationship with this MC or with this LC, but you will hear from us soon about this point. Don't worry about that. We are still understanding how we will be able to audit exactly all the violations in the compliance metrics. The application of APIP and AEPP will be until February 2021. Therefore, the cases that are submitted to ICB of GTA should be subject to XPP or new documents. Cool, that's an amazing question. The new documents, why? Because the policies of the new documents, they are already valid. What is going to be implemented by February 2021 on, that is not even by February, it's after IPM that will happen in February. So I don't know exactly when it will happen, but if it happened like in the first week of February, by the second week of February, it will be applicable right after. It's the violations of the compliance matrix, the sanctions of the compliance matrix. So all the policies of the new documents, they are already valid. They are already on. So you can read the document and understand that all of those policies are working right now. But if we identify any violation on your entity by now, we cannot apply any sanction because we understand that there are a lot of changes in the document and you need time to digest everything and to organize yourself as an entity to make sure that you're going to comply with everything. So sanctions will be applicable after February. The policies are already valid right now. For coronavirus, can an extension of more than 78 weeks be requested? Yes. This is something against XPP, but we are opening an exception for some specific cases. And the only situation that we are accepting to have an extension for more than 78 weeks is when, one, the EP is locked in the country, so the borders of the country are closed and the EP cannot go back to his home country or whatever he wants to go. And the second is that if the EP wants to go back to their country and their country is with the borders closed. So I will give you an example. I'm from Brazil and I am having an experience in Italy. Let's pretend that Italy has the borders open, but Brazil is with the borders closed. I cannot come back to my country, so I can extend it for 70 weeks, 78 weeks or more. Or the opposite, Brazil has the borders open, so I can enter in Brazil, but I cannot leave Italy because Italy is with the borders closed. I can also extend it for more than 78 weeks. Last question, could you tell AEPP meaning abbreviation? Sure, AIESEC Exchange Program Policies. Oh my God, I can't believe that I finished all the questions. Okay. That's it. I love it because it seems that you're really into the questions and you want to know more. So that's it. As I mentioned again, everything is recorded on YouTube, so you can go there and you can see the chat all again. But this link will be available for everyone. We will put a welcome message, all the output with all the links and also the materials because there are some people asking the materials. The Q&A in here with all the questions related to GT, GV, introduction, and the safety manners, and also ICB contacts if I have any doubts. Would you like to say something before closing, Val?
No, I think just thank you all for connecting and for listening to all of the call. I know it's very, very heavy, like there's a lot of content in each sessions, but well, as Gus says, they're all like the outputs and things, so you can like listen to it more calmly and like know everything. But like, thank you for connecting and for seeing all of this.
Yes.
Okay. Bye, everyone.